Welcome home. You're back early today. Yeah, I bought sushi for us to eat. I was surprised just to get a response from my husband, who had been ignoring me for over a month. Even more surprising, he was holding a box of high-quality sushi, something felt off. Feeling suspicious, I secretly swapped my sushi with my mother-in-law's. "Oh, it looks delicious. Let's start eating right away," I said, pretending to be cheerful. "Come on, eat up." Even my mother-in-law, who usually never talked to me, suddenly joined in the conversation. This made me feel even more uneasy, convinced that something strange was happening. I pretended to go to the kitchen to make tea, urging them to eat first. Then, I quietly watched their reactions from behind the door. To my shock, my mother-in-law started shivering and coughing after eating the sushi. I couldn't believe what I was hearing from them. "My name is Susan, and I'm 29 years old. I married Ryan, whom I met through my father's introduction just 6 months ago. I grew up with a strict father who despises dishonesty and a gentle yet strong-willed mother. I've always been a serious person, but this also made it hard for me to fit in with others. I have very few friends and had no romantic relationships until adulthood." Worried about me, my father introduced me to Ryan, who worked at the same company where my dad was a department head. Dad had high hopes for Ryan. Ryan seemed serious and friendly when we first met. He listened to my father's stories attentively and even talked to me, making the atmosphere pleasant. From what I heard, Ryan was well liked at the company, trusted by his bosses, and got along well with his co-workers because of his easygoing nature. At a company gathering, when my father mentioned having a daughter, Ryan asked to meet me. My father eagerly agreed, thinking this was finally a good opportunity for his daughter, who was already in her late 20s. The first time I saw my usually serious and strict father so excited, I realized he must have been worried about my future. I wanted to live up to his expectations. Ryan was the first man I met who talked to me at my own pace. As we spent time together and shared conversations, I became more and more drawn to him. After a few dinners, we started dating. During our relationship, I visited Ryan's family home and met his mother several times. She was just like crime-friendly and thoughtful, always making me feel at ease even when I was nervous. I started thinking how lucky I would be to marry into such a family. Just as I was hoping for a future together, Ryan proposed, and we got married. I was so happy then. But half a year after our marriage, I couldn't help but regret it. Right after we got married, the topic of living together came up. Ryan's mother had lost her husband and seemed lonely. She asked Ryan if she could live with us. At the time, I didn't doubt her intentions and agreed immediately. But this was the start of all my troubles. The moment we started living together, my mother-in-law's attitude completely changed. It was like she was a different person, and all her previous kindness seemed like a lie. She began treating me like an enemy. "Susan, why can't you do anything right? Dinner is late, and you made way too much food. There's no way we can eat all this. Please think a little. But yesterday, you told me to make more dishes. I tried my best to prepare them for you." "What are you saying? Are you blaming me now?" "No, I didn't mean that. Anyway, dinner should be at 6 p.m. Be on time from now on." "I'm sorry. I'll make sure to be punctual." "You can't even prepare a proper meal. I never thought someone like you would become my daughter-in-law." This kind of thing happens almost every day. My mother-in-law's demands keep changing, and even when I try my hardest to meet them, she always finds something new to complain about. It was the same problem again. After rushing home from work, I managed to get dinner ready by 6 p.m., but my mother-in-law didn't come to the table until almost 7 p.m. She complained that the food was cold and said I wasn't being thoughtful enough. Ryan usually comes home late due to overtime and social gatherings. Because of this, I often had to deal with my mother-in-law's criticisms alone, especially on weekday evenings. In front of Ryan, my mother-in-law would act a little less harsh, but that didn't mean she stopped scolding me. Sometimes, Ryan would step in and defend me when he saw her being too mean, but that was only in the beginning. Eventually, he seemed to get tired of it. One day, Ryan said to me, "Please try to get along with my mom." I was shocked by his words. How much more do you want me to do? I felt like shouting. I wanted to get along with her too, but her demands keep changing. It's impossible to please her. Just be more flexible. You're an adult, you should be able to handle that much, he said coldly. The kind and friendly Ryan I knew when we first met was gone. Things were getting worse. Ryan started taking his mother's side more openly. He agreed with her complaints and even laughed at me sometimes. His mother would give me a triumphant smile, clearly happy to have him on her side. Ryan and my mother-in-law began to treat me like a servant. On weekends, they would go out together, leaving all the housework to me. Sometimes, they would even go out to eat without telling me, even though I had already prepared dinner. Other times, Ryan would come home with takeout just for himself and his mother, completely ignoring me. The only reason I didn't leave Ryan's house was because I didn't want to worry my parents. They were so happy when I started dating Ryan. At our wedding, my usually serious father even cried. I didn't want to disappoint them, since they had high hopes for our marriage and sent me off with their blessings. Besides, if Ryan and I had problems, it could hurt my father's reputation. So, even though my mother-in-law treated me badly and Ryan didn't support me, I decided to stay and endure it. The only comfort I had was my pet cat, Dan. When I mentioned bringing John, whom I bought before we got married, my mother-in-law didn't like the idea, but I insisted. Now I'm really glad I did. After we got married, John became my source of comfort, helping me get through the hard days. Then, one day, something changed. Suddenly, both my mother-in-law and Ryan started ignoring me. There was no warning or explanation. No matter how much I tried to talk to them, they would act as if I didn't exist. Even if I asked what was wrong or tried to make things better, it was all in vain. I felt invisible. Whether I was talking or doing housework, they kept ignoring me. 1 month passed like this. Then, one evening, Ryan came home unusually early, around 6 p.m., when he usually arrived no earlier than 7 p.m. Surprised, I greeted him, expecting to be ignored again. "Welcome home. You're back early today," I said. To my shock, he responded, "Yeah, I brought sushi for us to eat." I was taken aback. My husband, who hadn't spoken to me for over a month, suddenly replied to me and even brought home high-quality sushi. Something felt off. I couldn't feel happy about it. Instead, I wondered, what is he up to? He placed my portion of sushi on the table first, making the situation feel even more suspicious. For the past few months, my husband had always put his mother first, never me. This felt suspicious, so my distress grew. One evening, when he brought sushi, I secretly switched my portion with my mother-in-law to see what would happen. "Oh, this looks delicious. Let's dig in, Susan. Eat up quickly," my mother-in-law said, surprisingly talking to me. That made me even more convinced something was wrong. I suggested, "I'll go make some tea. You both start eating." She responded, "Oh, I feel bad, but you're right. Hot tea is perfect with sushi. We'll start, so come back quickly." Pretending to head to the kitchen, I hid behind the door and watched. My husband and mother-in-law whispered to each other before starting to eat. Suddenly, my mother-in-law began shaking and coughing violently. Tears filled her eyes as she struggled to speak. Ryan, my husband, patted her back, looking worried. "What's going on? Why is there so much wasabi in my sushi? I told you to be careful not to mess this up," she shouted angrily. "I didn't mess up," Ryan defended himself. "I put the wasabi on Susan's sushi first. There's no way I made a mistake." "I can't eat this," she snapped back. "I wanted Susan to suffer from eating sushi with too much wasabi. But now the plan is ruined because of your mistake. What are we going to do?" I couldn't stay silent anymore. "What's going on here? Did you try to make me suffer without wasabi?" I asked, stepping forward. Both of them looked shocked to be caught, but my mother-in-law quickly sneered. "That's right. We ignored you for a whole month, but you seemed fine, so we thought we'd mess with you a little." "That's terrible," I shouted. "What's terrible? You should be grateful to stay in this house, even though you're a useless daughter-in-law," she yelled back. Even as she insulted me, my husband did nothing to stop her. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm going back to my parents' house, I finally said. I packed my essential belongings, put my cat, Dan, into his pet carrier, and walked out of the house with my bags. Ryan finally tried to stop me. Come on, you're overreacting. It was just a little joke, he said, without any hint of an apology. His words only made me more determined to leave. Without saying anything or looking back, I walked out of his parents' house. When I got to my parents' home, my mother was surprised to see me show up so suddenly, but she welcomed me in right away. She gently said, "If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay. But if you do, I'm here to listen." I ended up telling her everything, how my mother-in-law bullied me, how Ryan slowly started siding with her, and how I was treated like a mate. I explained how they ignored me for a whole month and even tried to make me eat sushi filled with way too much wasabi. I told her everything and then apologized for coming back after she had happily sent me off to get married. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I just couldn't take it anymore." "It's okay, dear," she said, comforting me. "Your father and I just want you to be happy. We don't want you staying with Ryan if it's causing you so much pain. You've been strong for so long." Hearing her words, I finally burst into tears, letting out everything I'd been holding back. When my father came home and heard what happened, he looked at me with deep regret. "I'm so sorry. It's all because I introduced you to Ryan. I had no idea he was like this," he said, bowing his head to me. His pained expression made me feel even worse. Just then, my phone started ringing. It was Ryan. I stared at the screen, waiting for it to stop ringing. Finally, it did. That's when I noticed the notification from the Pet Monitor app I had installed for John. I set it to remind me to refill his water before going to bed. Curious, I opened the app and clicked on the live streaming button. To my shock, I saw my mother-in-law and husband on the screen. "What should we do? Susan isn't answering the phone," my mother-in-law said. "It's fine. She'll come back eventually, but what should we do to her next?" Ryan laughed. "What if she says she wants a divorce? I can't lose my position as the boss's son-in-law. I've been able to pass work off to my team because of that. I can't afford to lose it now." Hearing him call himself the boss's son-in-law made me so angry that I couldn't hold back any longer. My father, who was sitting next to me, looked shocked and upset too. I immediately sent Ryan a message saying, "Let's get a divorce." My phone rang with calls from him right after, but I ignored them and went to sleep. The next Saturday morning, the doorbell rang early. Who could it be at this hour? I wondered. I heard my father's voice at the door, and then I recognized Ryan's irritating voice. "Please let me talk to Susan. She's misunderstanding everything," he said. Not wanting to cause my mother any more trouble, I went to the front door. I shot Ryan a cold glare and asked, "What do you want?" "Why didn't you answer the phone?" "I was worried about you," he said. "Worried? You teamed up with your mother to make fun of me, ignored me for a month, and tried to make me eat sushi with way too much wasabi," I accused. Ryan was speechless. I started to close the door on him. "I'll bring the divorce papers as soon as they're ready. I have nothing more to say to you, so please leave." "Wait, are you serious? You've never been in a relationship before, right? If we get divorced, you might never marry again. Are you okay with being alone for the rest of your life?" Ryan asked. His words only made me angrier. I played a recording of the Pet Monitor footage I had saved from last night. Ryan's expression changed when he saw the video. "You don't want a divorce just to keep your position, right? You don't even think of me as your wife. I'd rather be single than be with someone who doesn't care about me and uses their power to hurt others," I said firmly. My mother nodded in agreement. Then I heard my father's voice from behind me. "She's right, Ryan. After seeing that video with my daughter, I asked around at your company. It seems you've been using your position as my son-in-law to push work onto your subordinates and make them do unnecessary tasks. You've been acting like a king." I realized I still had a lot to learn about judging people. "Please wait, father-in-law. This isn't what it looks like. It's my mother." "Yes, it was all my mother's idea. She told me to bother Susan and use my position as her son-in-law to push work onto others. So, he really was making others do his work. I was not only angry but also shocked that Ryan was trying to blame his mother for everything while exposing his own mistakes. Ryan looked at me with sad eyes, but I turned my head away dramatically. At that moment, I heard another annoying voice. "Ryan, I came to help you." It was my mother-in-law, trying to support Ryan, but by then, Ryan had already betrayed her. He pointed at her and said, "It's all her fault." My mother-in-law looked confused. "What do you mean? I came here to help you. Are you trying to make me the bad guy?" "You are the bad guy. It's all your fault." "Ma'am, if you hadn't bothered Susan, none of this would have happened. We wouldn't be talking about divorce, and I wouldn't be worried about losing my job." "Don't blame me. It's your fault for trying to get rid of me." They continued to argue, and my parents and I could only watch in shock. Their fight didn't seem to end anytime soon. My father, tired of their bickering, finally spoke up. "You two can't argue about this at home. I'm disappointed to find out that you, Ryan, are such a terrible person. There was talk of promoting you, but I'm canceling that." Ryan looked at my father desperately, but my father didn't change his mind. Just like that, our divorce was decided on the spot. We printed the divorce papers at home and signed them right away. Word about Ryan's wrongdoings at work and our divorce spread quickly. He felt so embarrassed that he offered to resign. Now, he's been trying to find a new job, but the rumors followed him to other companies in the same industry, and no one would hire him. He's trying to switch to a different field, but that isn't going well either. After arguing with his mother about everything that happened, Ryan left his parents' home and started living alone. But now, he has no money and is stuck in a run-down apartment. Ryan is doing day labor jobs to get by, barely making it through each day. His mother, who used to spoil him, is now living alone and feeling lonely. The neighbors found out how she treated her daughter-in-law, and now she lives without conversation, receiving cold stares from everyone. I'm back living with my parents, just the three of us. This situation has become a burden for my ex-mother-in-law, and with Ryan gone, I can't focus on my work better than ever. I've been given bigger responsibilities, and 1 year after the divorce, I see signs of a new beginning in my life. I've started to develop a relationship with a junior colleague. We successfully completed a project together, and since then, we've worked together many times and built a trusting friendship. At first, we only talked about work, but lately, he's invited me to meals. Just the other day, he asked me out. This time, I want to build a happy family, and I believe that with him, my wish will come true.